We ready? We're now joined by Coach Matt Wells from Texas Tech University. Coach, welcome, and your thoughts about the upcoming season.
Yeah, Peter, appreciate it. As always, good to be back and be in person. Somewhat normal. I think we all appreciate what you have when you don't have it, and we all appreciate it a little bit more in person this year, and so it's good to be here. I think as a program we continue to build and to gain strength and confidence in our processes off the field. Academically, we're doing very well. 73 people in our program with the 3.0 or higher. We're making gains in strength and conditioning, and right now the vibe and the continuity with our players is really as strong as it's ever been in our 2 years that we've been there at Tech, and the buy-in is at an all-time high, and I credit our players and our leadership, and so as we head into this to this third season, looking to build on that and to become bowl eligible and to get to the month of November and compete for a championship will be the goal of this program always, but glad to be here.
Okay, we'll take questions for Coach if you'll put your hand up so that we know that you want to ask a question. We've got a question about 4 rows back, up here in the front, guys. About 4 rows back on the left side. And if you will, please stand up and give your name when you ask your question. Thank you.
Don Williams from the Lubbock Avalanche Journal. Matt, Kadin Geiger, your transfer from Troy, can you tell us how you envision him fitting in, both by position he will play and just what style of player he will be? Yeah,
thanks, Don. Good to see you. Kadin Geiger, transfer from Troy. He'll have 1 year of eligibility. We'll play him at an outside receiver position. I do believe he can play both. He can play inside or outside. He's a speed wideout, really good with the ball in his hands post-catch. Had about 140 catches over 2 years at Troy. Fort Worth kid, come back home, and we're happy to have him. I do believe that we'll utilize him in the kickoff return game. And so I think he's a dual threat type of guy for us in terms of the kicking game and the receivers in that receiver room, the outside receiver room particularly. Obviously, Eric Ezekama, I think, is as good as anybody in this league, and Easy's going to have a great season. I'm looking forward to watching him, but we're very talented in that room, but young. We're tall, we're young in that room, and so Kadin gives us a little bit more experience in that room, especially early in the season.
Question over on the left-hand side, about third row.
Hey, Coach. Shahan J. Raja from Dave Campbell's Texas Football. You brought in the transfer quarterback, of course. What do you feel like you need from that position to kind of take a step forward on the offensive side of the ball?
Can he say it again? I heard the transfer quarterback. That's all I heard.
Yeah. What do you feel like you need versus last year from the quarterback position to kind of be able to take the step that you hope to take on offense?
Yeah, I think it's obvious we need to play better in that room. And I think top to bottom, that room is better than it's ever been in the 3 years I've been at Texas Tech, going into our third season. You mentioned Tyler. Tyler got to Tech, practice 3 in spring ball, and I think the things that he brings are very. There's some things that they're hard to measure. He's in early, he stays late. He's a football junkie. He's been a really good leader and fit in with our players almost immediately. Henry Colombi, who won a few games last year in this league for us. He had a really good spring. I'm proud of Henry. That'll be a really good battle. And then I think the other two freshmen, Baron Morton and Donovan Smith, top to bottom, that room is better than it's been. And we all know you got to play well in that room to compete in this league, and you got to play at a high level. And so, I think as coaches, we put the talent in there, and it's up to those guys to compete. And it'll be as good a fight as we've had in that position since we've been there, the month of August.
Question on the right, 3 rows back in the middle.
Cole Thompson, LonghornsCountry.com. Matt, just want to get your thoughts on Sonny Cumbie coming back as your new offensive coordinator, what he's been able to do in Lubbock as a quarterback, but also what you saw with him at TCU, and how has he worked with Tyler and the other quarterbacks in the locker room, establishing his offense for this season?
Yeah, a lot packed in that question. I'll try to remember all of those. It's good to have Sonny back. He's West Texas, from Snyder, Texas, and obviously had a really good senior season at Texas Tech and a career at Tech. And he's been there under several staffs before me. I think the vibe right now is really good with him and the offensive players. They're excited. In terms of him and the quarterbacks, that's part of the reason I do believe I chose him is just his ability to coach and connect with those quarterbacks. He's a detailed teacher. He's a technique teacher. He's done a nice job with those guys in the spring. I'm looking forward to the work that he's going to do with them throughout this season. But you know, I think overall it's been positive. But he knows we need to play well. Texas Tech means a lot to Sonny. And, you know, it's a place where I know he and his wife and his family are very comfortable, but it's great to have him in the building, part of our staff.
Question on the outside left, about halfway back.
Coach Ian Boyd from Inside Texas. What would you identify as the main obstacle to playing better defense in years 1 and 2, and how do you see your team resolving that issue in next season?
Yeah, I think we made a lot of progress from year 1 to last year, from 19 to 2020 in our defense. If you look at the Big 12, just in the Big 12 games, we improved from really not very good in 2019 to okay in a lot of areas last year. But we need to make a jump again this year, and I think the strength of that defense will be our linebackers. Rico Jeffers, Colin Schooler, both those guys had draft grades and chose to come back as super seniors. Krishawn Merriweather, Brandon Boyer-Randall, Jacob Morgenstern have all started, so we're very old at linebacker. We've added a few transfers in the secondary. DeMarcus Fields is back. And so that'll be a unit that I know, you know, just internally in the locker room, we're going to rely on that unit, on the defensive unit early in the season. We're older there. We've got returning guys. We need to play well. They know it. You know, the strength of that will be those guys in the middle, those linebackers and their veteran leadership.
We got a question on third row back. Kirk, you going to ask a question?
Yeah, Kirk Bowles from the Austin American Statesman. Matt, I was curious how much you're kind of haunted by the loss to Texas and Baylor, where you're in the game and have great chances to win both of those games, and how much has that kind of kept you from really seizing some momentum for your program?
Yeah, Kurt, you hit the nail on the head right there. I think the name of this game in this league right now is finding a way to win close games. In our first year in 2019, we were 0-4 in one-score games. Last year, I think we went 4-2 in those one-score games. But we know that in order to get into a bowl game and to get to the upper half of the Big 12, you're going to have to win close games. And your comment there is spot on. You're right on. And hopefully leadership, experience, being in a lot of those games. We've been in a lot of them the last 2 years. You need to win a couple, especially early, to give your guys confidence and momentum as the season, you know, I think lingers on. Because you're going to be in those games every Saturday in this league.
We got a question way in the back on the left side. Put your hand up so we, okay, thank you.
Hey, Coach. Carter Yates with the Daily Texan. A lot has been made about your transfer quarterback, but you also have a transfer left tackle in TJ Storeman. What did you see out of him in spring ball, and where does he fit in on your offensive line rotation?
Yeah, he's fit in really good, first of all, with those guys. And that's a close-knit unit led by Dawson Deaton. You know, right down here, TJ can play both tackle spots. He's got really good feet. He's athletic. He's gotten stronger. You know, he's had a few schools that he's been at. And so as he has gone through this process, he's, you know, I think he's adapted to coaching and to a language, you know, and I say language like our terminology and stuff like that pretty quickly. He's had some good practice at it. But in terms of him and fitting in from day one, and our guys, our returning guys, really did a great job of wrapping their arms around him. But it goes both ways. You know, him learning what we do at Tech and what's been different than some of his other stops. But he'll absolutely be a big part of that offensive line success this year.
Question on the right-hand side on the aisle.
Yeah, Matt, Barry Trammell with the Oklahoman, couple, 3 years in the league now. What do you know about this conference that you didn't know when you took the Tech job?
Well, you know, something that I knew when I took the job, Barry, that's been pretty much validated is the championship runs through Norman. Right now, we already knew that coming into the league, but I just think top to bottom, the strength of the league. One thing that you know and you assume, and it's been validated, is every Saturday there's a real play caller, there's a real wideout, and a real quarterback. Almost every Saturday you're going to face that. But I think really, and I just got done talking about it on the set, I think one thing that doesn't get talked about quite a bit, and it needs to, is the defenses in this league. There's really good defensive coordinators. There's defense-minded head coaches, and Coach Aranda and Coach Patterson and coordinators in this league that are very good. And the reality is, I think you can point to the defensive line play. That's what I probably didn't know. And, you look at Baylor 2018, 2019 with Matt. That was the D-line for Baylor, and that was a big reason why they were really good. You look at Oklahoma's D-line, what West Virginia's done. Iowa State's had a draft pick. They're going to have another draft pick. Oklahoma State has guys that can rush the passer. I think that's the TCU does. That's what I don't think probably gets written about, but we as coaches know, the players know, and that's probably the biggest thing that I didn't know coming into the league.
We've got a question on the aisle about 3/4 of the way back. Put your hand up so that we... Did I miss that? Okay. We'll move over all the way in the corner on the right side, all the way at the back.
Kevin Ward, Sports Animal Radio in Tulsa. By the way, Black Diamonds say hello. I wondered if you could speak to Cameron Watts and the rest of your secondary and the importance they'll play this year.
Yeah, secondary, when I mentioned our improvement from 2019 to 2020, that was a big area, was the secondary. I think it was led by hiring Derek Jones and then moving our D coordinator, Keith Patterson, back to the secondary to coordinate. But you mentioned Cam from Union, right down the road from you. You just mentioned him. We've got some other guys from Oklahoma on our team. But the improvement of that secondary, I think, will be another key this year for us to take another step forward. I mentioned DeMarcus Fields, who had a draft grade, another super senior that chose to come back. We've added Marquis Waters from Duke, transfer. Reggie Pearson from Wisconsin. Both those guys are safeties. Malik Dunlap from NC State. Rashad Williams from UCLA. Adrian Fry returns, who's a veteran. We got 2 young guys, and Nate Floyd and Kobe Minor. So that'll be an area that we have made improvement, and we got more improvement to make. But I'm looking forward to watching them.
All the way in the back on the aisle. Stand up, please, and there you go.
Phil Mayer, everythinglubbock.com. You mentioned the transfers in the defensive back room. How important is it to have that Power 5 experience back in the secondary?
Yeah, Phil, I think Power 5 experience, maybe it could be Group of 5 experience. I think Kadin Geiger, we talked about the wideout earlier, first question I got. His experience at Troy is tremendous for us. But those guys that do have Power 5, I just named 4 transfer DBs in the secondary that we're bringing in that have been in since January. I think their experience is valuable, but more than anything, they've got to be able to translate that experience to playing, a team defense at Texas Tech and into Texas Tech Red Raider defense, led by Rico and Schooler and those guys. But being a part of that defense is the key in the transition of a transfer into that defense. More than anything is the most important thing.
Further questions for Coach? You're not going to let him get off early, right? We got a question right up here at the front.
Chip Brown, Horns 24/7. Matt, can you tell us a little bit about Marquis Waters and what you think he can bring?
Yeah, Marquis Waters, we call him Muddy. He's from Delray Beach, South Florida. He was a 3-year starter, all-academic guy at Duke, and 3-year starter. Played for Derek at Duke. He's a team captain. He's a leader. He's into ball. He's a football junkie. Comes in early, stays late. He studies the game, and he's done a really nice job, I think, of being who he is, being confident in his skills, but yet being a great teammate and learning, what we do at Texas Tech and how we do it and how it's different. And again, I keep talking about these transfers. It's not just the fact that they've played and played well at the other schools, but it's the transition into Texas Tech and into Lubbock, and we've certainly had a lot of practice at that because we've taken so many transfers. But I'm proud of him and I'm proud of the rest of those guys, but he has become a leader back there at day one since he got into Lubbock in January.
Question on the left, just short, way back.
Hey, Shahan, J. Roger again from Dave Campbell's Texas football coach. You talked a lot about the transfers. What do you feel of the first couple of recruiting classes that you have? And do you feel like the balance is there on your roster to both kind of have the old and the young as well?
Yeah, when we first got here, I said we need to get old. We're going to try to recruit the best Texas high school players and a few outside the state, but mainly here in this state where we don't need to leave the state much in high school recruiting. And we've upgraded our high school recruiting, but we've certainly needed to get old, and we needed to get old in a hurry in the transfers. Now, it's gone from grad transfers to every year transfers, I should say, or whatever year transfers. And so, right now, I don't know, we're 60%, 65%, high school players and another 30, 35% or whatever transfers. I see us being that way at Texas Tech right now. Maybe that number goes down just a little bit over the next 3 years. But they've certainly added, first of all, talent and competitive depth in certain rooms, but they've added some leadership and some maturity where we've needed it in other rooms.
This is going to be the final question for Coach, and it's going to be on the outside. Barry?
Yeah, Matt, a question about the transfer portal. Has it made head coaching, or all the coaches, does it make your job easier, harder, or just different?
Different. It's a hard job, Barry. I mean, whether you're recruiting high school players, I tell you what, it is different recruiting transfers. It's different. I mean, it's a whole lot more, a little bit more business oriented, and it's maybe in some ways transactional. But I think the biggest key for us in terms of that is, why are you leaving? Where's your heart? What do you need? And then does it match up with what we need and what we want in those certain position meeting rooms? And I think we've done a great job at Texas Tech. I think we do as transfers as good as anybody. They've come in, they've played well, and they've been really good leaders. And 100% of them, all 18 of them, have come in with the right heart and added to the culture that we've tried to change at Texas Tech, and they've been really, really good. But I can't tell you that it's any harder. It's just different. It looks different. I will tell you, thank goodness that deadline's going to May 1 next year instead of July 1. That made for the month of June to be obviously the busiest and craziest month in college football history for all of us. And the transfers and that, the late deadline, which I think was good for this year. But going to May 1 will help all of us as coaches manage that roster a little bit better.
Okay, Coach, we appreciate your answers, and we wish you the best luck for the season.
Thank you. Guns up.